Welcome to Common Fixes, guys. Today we're working on a 2017 Nissan 370Z with a 3.7 liter engine. What we're going to be doing today, so we have the transmission down. What we're going to be doing is installing this kit onto the transmission. The original transmission has an internal slave cylinder that puts pressure on this release bearing to release the clutch and engage the clutch, whatever the case might be. And then so that usually fails. It's a common fail for these vehicles, and what happens is the pedal is kind of lower than before, than the original position, so it kind of goes down the clutch pedal. So that slave cylinder leaks internally and loses that pressure. So what we need to do, we need to get this kit, and we're going to be putting this kit on. This is the kit, and then let me see if there's a. This is a kit the customer provided, so he wants me to put this on, and it comes basically like this with the boot, the slave, the release bearing, the fork, all that comes in, and it gives you a hydraulic line also with a couple of bolts. So we're going to be putting this on. That way we have this slave cylinder. Instead of internal, we mount it external. So if it does fail, we don't have to remove the whole transmission to get it done. Okay, so we'll separate and take out some of these things. We'll take out the hydraulic line coming into here. There's a clip here that we need to remove. The clip I already removed actually, sits right here. So we just need to remove that clip from the top, and then separate this line from here. There's two 10s, one 10 millimeter there, one 10 millimeter right here. That will remove this whole assembly out. And then we'll remove this line along with the boot out from the back, from the side of the transmission. So we'll move it out from here and undo that 10 millimeter bolt there. And we'll take out this whole hydraulic line out to prepare for putting the other one in. So after we've removed that, we have to remove a couple of bolts here. So we have to remove about 5 bolts. I have to remove about 5 bolts. So those 5 bolts would be the bottom 2 bolts, this bolt here, another one up here, and then there's one more in this the back right here. So there will be 5 bolts there. After we remove this front piece, we'll remove those bolts, and then we'll have to install a bracket. We have to install this bracket in that spot so we can release that bearing. Now there's also a T30 bolt here that's holding this in place. You got to remove that also, and then pull the whole thing out with the rubber boot. Pull the whole thing out. So that'll give you the opening there, and it will give you a clear spot here for the installation of the new parts. So this is the kit. This will be the release fork for it. This will be the new bearing. You have to put the fork, the edge of the fork. You have to put the edge of these forks into the flat spots here on the bearing. Make sure it's well lubricated with wheel bearing grease, high temperature bearing grease. Make sure it's well lubricated along here and also along the side here. just so things don't seize up. And then you have another piece here. This will go behind this throttle bearing, so that'll go behind it there like that. So you also have that piece, and then what else comes in the kit would be the actual boot that the fork arm goes through. So fork arm go through that boot, and then you have the main part, which is the external slave cylinder. The external slave cylinder that will get mounted up. You'll also get in the kit this hose, hydraulic hose line that gets connected to the main hydraulic line. You also get bolts, 5 bolts for these 5 silver bolts are for the bracket itself, these 5 holes to mount it up. And then you have these 2 small black bolts. They will be for this piece that goes at the back of the throttle bearing. And then you have one more bolt, this bolt that we'll put on. Other than that, that's pretty much the whole kit. That's pretty much the whole kit that we'll be putting on. So like I said, we're gonna grease up all these parts with wheel bearing grease, so that way they move freely, and we're gonna get ready to install it. So we'll prep up, we'll clean up all that area, just wipe it down and stuff, put some grease, and start taking off those 5 bolts. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll take those 5 bolts off, put the bracket on, put some blue anti thread lock on there, and then put it up and torque it to specs. Okay, so the new bearing is installed. Make sure it gets greased inside here. The back of it where the fork sits. Make sure there's grease there and all the contact points. Put some grease on the back plate there, and then the other arm will go through this boot, and it will come out through the other side. So once you have that, those 2 bolts for the back of the bearing, that plate, the one bolt there and the other bolt there, that's at 4 torques. Torque them at 80 inch-pounds, and then the bolt that's gonna go on this fork, the 5 bolts, torque them to 20 foot-pounds. So we're gonna assemble that. And make sure you put all blue Loctite on all the bolts. These are the 5 bolts that would go into the mounting of the fork. Once they're threaded in by hand, go ahead, torque these 5 bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, so everything's put together, everything's torqued, everything's greased up, nicely greased, and we're ready to put the transmission up. And once the transmission is put up, then we'll deal with the outside and put the slave cylinder on the outside mounted, and I'll show you how to do that when we get there. All right, so our next step would be, before we put the transmission up, we have to cut the original pressure plate. We have to cut the original pressure plate in these locations. So the inner ring needs to be cut out. So we need to cut right where these rivets are. We have to cut each side of that evenly. So we have to cut in this side, and we have to cut this side on all 3 spots. Here, 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 and here. We have to cut it evenly, so that way it gets rid of this inner ring, because if you don't get rid of this inner ring, it will be in the way of the new system that we just put up. And the other thing you need to know is we got to be replacing this flex hose. It comes with the kit already. So this will be the new hose that we'll be using. It'll come in the kit, and you need to get rid of it. So at the side there, right up there, we're gonna get disconnect it from there and replace this whole hose and connect a new one to it. The easiest way to do this, you need to remove the exhaust. So remove the exhaust from this flange and that flange. That way it gets rid of this whole Y pipe exhaust system, and that would make it easier for you to attach the flex hose. So once you cut them out, that's how it's going to look. These will be the 3 pieces that will come out with the fingers on them. So just cut evenly, as even as possible, to prevent vibration, and then that's how it's going to look. I would also recommend putting some lube around the fingers here, just to make everything smooth, and that's it. So we're ready to put the tranny in, and once the tranny is in, I'll show you how to put the sleeve cylinder on. Okay guys, so everything is put together. The cylinder, the fork, everything was moving nicely. We bled it. There's some brake fluid here, but we'll clean it up. We had to bleed it. It gave us a little bit of a hard time because we found out that the actual master of the clutch had a lot of dirt in there, and it was restricting the flow, and we couldn't bleed it properly, so we had to replace that also. But basically the transmission is all done. It's put all together. I just have to put the exhaust back up, but everything is put up and the fork is moving and moving nicely. So everything's pretty much done, and that is the conversion kit for these vehicles. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like and share the video. Thank you.